If I could have everyone's attention, we're going to come back to order. Our live stream is still down, but we will be recording the meeting here locally. That will be posted to the website as soon as possible. If I could have everyone's attention, we will be getting started again. Thank you. Mr. Eubank.
Alrighty, where was I? So we heard a number of things. You know, I know some of them I've already talked about. As everyone says, I'll be brief. And then I'll turn it over to Adam Brock, the developer, just to talk about some of the items came up in regards of housing types and things like that, and some ways that they protect the bay and different things that they do. Just to hit on a few of the items with regards to Bishop Tolbert, I think what Anna provided today was good insight, and I know this still has to be checked again and again with the county surveyor, but it makes a lot of sense now, the maintenance, but it does appear to be public. And I will say this, you know, we've talked to him, talked to the team. It will be a benefit to our development should that road be built, make no mistake about it. But if the county or at the BCC level or wherever that may be says that no, we do not want you to build that road, then it's a cost savings battle, to be quite frank. So just wanted to mention that. Heard about short-term rentals. Adam can talk about this a little bit if he wants, but these guys do not allow short-term rentals in their covenants. We'll be happy to put that in plans, the PUD. That is not their business model at all. Real quickly, there's a combination of...
Again, if I could just clarify,
Yep.
you just stated that the plan is to prohibit short-term rentals in this particular development. That's correct.
I'll go into detail.
That has to do with part of the Bishop Tolbert Road situation. I will point out, you know, this is strictly to move density around. There are no variances requested whatsoever. And it does serve the developer well to be able to, you know, cluster density. We do have open space to the south in the wetlands that we can put, you know, estate lots in with roadways through at certain crossings. We don't think that's beneficial to the developer. We don't think it's beneficial to the county or public, where we can use that for trails and other amenities. You know, right now across the site we have 0.18 acres, 18% impervious, 18% impervious. And we heard a little bit about the infill, which does have some compatibility. I will tell you, this site was designed to limit homes within infill across from the bay. So if you look at our site plan, just briefly, the infill portion falls right about here. So it was designed to limit to be approximately the base density of infill. That was the intent of that area, so as not to put additional units up along the bay where the infill falls. And one thing I'll point out about the mixing and matching of density is one thing that we heard over and over from the public was, we don't want commercial. And if these guys did not do a PUD, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mac, but my understanding is the code and the comp plan require, I believe it's 5% of small neighborhood to have a commercial use. And in this case, if we did not do a PUD, that would be up along the bayou. That is where small neighborhood falls in this particular property. These developers did not ask for small neighborhood, did not ask for infill. It was there when they came in and purchased the property. We heard about the 50-foot setback. That is called out specifically on our plans. I believe it's in our PUD document, but we'll make sure that we can add it in HOA conditions as well. You know, the other thing is with small neighborhood, so currently if you look at this project in, quote, two pieces, we've got what we call internally our Church Street piece, and then the Bishop piece. There's 37 units, I believe, on the Church Street piece, and there's 170 something units on the Bishop piece, which, you know, it may not be feasible to get all the way to the 170, but with infill and small neighborhood, if they were to go after some of the code allowances, they could still get close to this density without any PUD, and still have room to build to the south, another development. So again, I just want to point out from a density standpoint, we are far below what the code allows, just as a singular base density without any bonus points. There may be something I missed. Certainly if I have any questions, feel free to ask me, but I'm going to turn it over to Adam and he can talk to you about some of the housing and stuff that I'm not an expert on.
Hello, I'm Adam Brock with Brock Built Homes, and thank you for taking some time today to hear from us. There's been a lot said. I'm going to cover a couple of the things that were brought up. But first, Brock Built's new to Walton County. We aren't coming in to do one project. I've been coming here my entire life. I remember when there was nothing on 38 except for Seagrove. I remember Seaside being built, and actually probably had a large impact on how I view land planning. That said, we've come down and made a lot of investments. I think we have 7 projects in Walton County right now that are in various stages of pre-development or development. We're excited to be a part of the community and plan to be here a very long time. That said, I think I want to talk first about our design. We are a new urbanist company. Our land plans, we take a lot of pride in. We aren't somebody that just hires an engineer and says make the most efficient plan. In fact, this is one of the least efficient ways you could plan a subdivision. There's a lot of one-sided street and a lot of curving roads, and that all adds cost, adds structures, manholes, things like that. I'm a utility contractor, or I should say we are a utility contractor. It's actually my brother holds license. But we know the cost of doing development. We understand it. We do public and private infrastructure. Along with our land planning kind of ideals found in new urbanism is also design and aesthetics of the exterior. So what I mean by that is we're known to do sidewalks, street trees, things that aren't required by code because we like how they look. We like the streetscape it creates. And when I invest in real estate, I take the position that the #1 impact I can have is on the streetscapes, the outward facing towards the community. Next would be the kitchen and then the master bath. But curb appeal is paramount. So one small example, Jamie brought up that there's been some kind of reinterpretation of how the street trees ordinance in Walton County would be applied. And he said to me, I don't think it matters to you because you were planning to do when they require anyway. Which would be true. We believe in cluster development for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that it does allow you to preserve green space, and not just green space, but usable green spaces. I've seen a lot of developers that, they have 40% green space on their site, but it's all completely unusable. It's down in a hole. No one's ever going to go to it, and I don't see much benefit in that. What this does is we have an interconnected trail system on the southern portion of the property, something around 40 acres of trails, and the trails are all put on uplands, and those are both, there's some zone X, there's some zone A unnumbered, there's some numbered A zones. We're staying out of all the wetlands in that area and taking our trails around it so it can be an engaging spot. It would be open to the public on the Southern Trail Network, so we like that. We want it to get used if we're going to spend the money to create it. As far as architecturals go, there's been some renderings I've handed out to the community as well as maybe some of the staff, and I do want to be clear that those renderings are an example of the product I've built in many other communities. That's not necessarily the product that's going to be on this project. We have standardized house plans and footprints and townhome plans, but we re-elevate those plans for every project. We go through a visioning session, we work with our architects, and we look at the character and the fabric of every every project and its surroundings, and we design the architecturals, the exteriors to that. So that process has just really started on this project, and it's not complete. So I can't show exactly what we're going to build, but just representative samples. I did hear one comment made by somebody in the public that, you know, building out of wood, and that stuck in my head because we made that change probably 10 years ago where we don't use wood on our exteriors. We're a full hardy wrap. We pay a lot to be that, but you're not gonna have rot and those type of things that occur from wood product. It's cement fiber-based products. I think sales prices and values. We're a very transparent company. So when we meet with people, and you ask me, what am I planning to sell for? I'm gonna tell you what I'm planning to sell for based on my underwriting of the investment, which is significantly below what I hope to sell for. And I've said to people, there's nobody in this room that wants these values to be higher than me. I promise you, except for maybe Mike. But the going on stormwater and BMPs, the impacts to the bayou, that is a sensitive subject for me. I can tell you that I have been on both sides of the table with environmental contamination, specifically sediment contamination. I've been doing this a long time, and you know, I've been sued for dirt leaving my property in big rain events. I've sued others for dirt leaving their property. I employ some of the foremost experts in environmental law, science, and engineering that there are in this nation. We spare no expense for that. Because I've lived through what can happen if you don't do it right. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you my instructions to Jamie has been, I don't care what the code is, that is the absolute base floor minimum. We're gonna go above and beyond like nothing you've seen. I've already hired an attorney, Michael Carvalho, he's my environmental attorney. He's hired Geosyntec to oversee this project, and basically what we're doing is surveys of the existing conditions of the bayou now, so we can establish a baseline, not just along our property, but along all the others. We want to locate and identify any areas that are problematic off-site so that we know what's happening with it. We're doing different soils testings with Geosyntec, and then they'll be reviewing our erosion control plans so that, you know, it's kind of the overkill belt and suspenders. One of the things this isn't my first time developing on the water. Stono River had a project in Charleston very similar to this, with Stono River frontage. But one of the things we did there is where the bay lots are located, right? Bayou lots are located. One of the things we did in Charleston is we went and dug temporary sediment ponds basically all the way along the run frontage, the river frontage parallel with it. So that didn't stop you have a 50-foot buffer. That may have double row of silt fence with straw between. Then you step back another 50 feet and you have temporary sediment basin ponds and traps, so that if there is a big weather event, an act of God, it's got to go through that before it even gets to your perimeter protection. So those are the types of plans we'll do. I think Ms. Joyce Lanning submitted a letter to TRC where she raised her primary concern. I got to tell you, I really like her, respect her. Met her on the property when she was kayaking, picking up trash out of the bayou. So she's somebody to me that's passionate about it, but not only passionately, she's out there doing the work. So we respect that. She suggested that we do some baseline studies. I told her we would. I had my attorney, Michael Carvalho, respond to her in writing, laying out what I've just said to you in regards to Geosyntec and some of the extra steps we'll take. And I believe I've asked Jamie to submit that response letter to you for the record. It'd be fine with me if that ended up as part of the PUD document and requirements. One of the next big issues was the deeds that were being talked about in deed restrictions. There was a deed restriction when we bought the property. There was, right here, there's a 3.7 acre parcel. That parcel was sold or traded by the original owner to somebody else that I bought from. And when they did that, they gave him a 20-foot easement, not on Bishop Tolbert Road, but from this point over to the 3.7 acres. So that's the easement that's been referenced. That's a 20-foot access easement down Vernon's old driveway. As part of that easement, he restricted them to only doing 2 units on the 3.7 acres and no commercial. That was correct. The issue there is that I own everything. I'm both sides of that now. We own the 3.7, all the property that contains it, and 100% of the property that was the easement was subjected to. Therefore, I'm the sole party on every side of that table, and those deed restrictions are being removed as we speak. So there's nobody on the other side to say, no, you can't do that. So I just wanted to clarify what those restrictions were, and we'd be glad to provide you with evidence of that from our title companies and lawyers if needed. The road on BT, that's, I think, one of the other most significant issues. And just to be frank with you, I don't view that as necessarily an applicant issue or even a community issue. I view that as a county issue because I have reviewed the records. I think there's facts on both sides. The Cano survey that was brought up earlier today where the gentleman said he owns to the middle of the road, it absolutely does show he owns to the middle of the road, and it's a recent survey. It also says dedicated 20 feet of right-of-way right below that, so a little contradictory. And when I see situations like that, I look to the county for guidance. What I can tell you is that if the road stayed in the exact condition it is today, I can live with that. Nobody debates that we have access to our property. The debate is what kind of improvements can I do to that road? And as Jamie stated, if I don't make any improvements, that's going to save me hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I'll gladly take it. I don't think that's in the best interest, so I will say that if if the county took the position that it's a public road and it needs to be improved, it's in our budget to do so. My suggestion, if I could snap my fingers, I know I can't, but if I could snap my fingers and do something, I would develop that road very narrow, probably 20 feet, maybe less. I'd probably put some tree island breaks in it to narrow it down even tighter. Have a 16-foot travel corridor in select spaces, and that's intentional in lieu of speed bumps. I hate speed bumps, but it's traffic calming. And somebody asked, well, how would 2 cars pass? And I said, very carefully and slowly. That would be the goal. So that's where my head's at with it. I view it as a secondary means of ingress, egress, and we'll work with the county regardless of what the outcome is if it's decided it should be private or public and how it should be improved. Wedding venue. The wedding venue is an attempt to satisfy the commercial requirement. And I'll, again, be very frank, I'm a blunt guy. I find the commercial requirement to be a little bit ridiculous on this property specifically. But it's code, I gotta satisfy it. I believe the wedding venue does that. But I wanna be clear, this is not a 200-person wedding with a DJ and a sound stage set up. This is more like a couple that's eloping maybe, and it's a pavilion essentially. There's no outdoor big seating area for guests. It's no different than what you may see in a small town square that has a pavilion where there's a small 10, 20 person wedding or less, and no music, nothing like that. Take pictures, go celebrate elsewhere. There won't be enclosed facilities where you could have receptions. And frankly, there won't even be very much parking to gain access. And on top of that, you probably have about a half-mile walk through the woods to get to that pavilion. So I don't believe it'll be a nuisance to anybody. The short-term rentals. We are a for-sale builder, home builder. We don't do build-for-rent communities, at least not in this market. I do have a build-for-rent deal in Atlanta. I'll be full disclosure about that, and I do multifamily projects, apartments. That's not planned here. This is for our for-sale home building business. When we do a community, we face challenges like every other developer as it relates specifically to Airbnb. I've had issues where we didn't have proper restrictions in the community, and people did, investors would buy them and Airbnb them, and we've had parties and things like that got out of hand. So we've learned from those experiences, and our documents do not allow things like Airbnb. it's disallowed and it is fined heavily. So what we do, one, we don't restrict it to that you can't actually lease out for an Airbnb or short-term rental. If you list it, you're in violation. So you don't actually have to have somebody show up to be fined. If you even list it on the website, you're in violation. And every time it's listed, we charge you whatever your listing rate is. If it's $500 a night, I'm gonna charge you double in fines, $1,000. And that gets applied, we will lien, and we will sue you for those liens if you don't pay. What I find typically happens, the liens build up, the investor decides this isn't worth it, he goes to sell, he calls to negotiate, I say absolutely not, they pay off the liens, the HOA gets that money, I don't get any of it, but it kind of helps the HOA stomach the problem they went through. So that's how we handle those type of issues. We do allow some rental, you have to, in every neighborhood, there's hardship, there's people that only want to be there 6 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year. It's a very, it's a reviewed process, it comes through the HOA board, they have to submit a fully executed lease, and all renewals have to be approved by the HOA as well. And like I said, in the standard community, it's either a 6-month or a 12-month required minimum on those leases. And we use various percentages, typically by product of how much can be leased at any one time, excluding, like I said, extreme hardships, which people like to think in good times like this doesn't happen, but I remember 2009, and there were a lot of people that had to rent, all of a sudden. I think I covered the majority of the high points. There were some other things that I could talk to. The 50-foot setback from the water, that's already on our plans. We understand that. When I made the comment that those owners would be responsible, I was really referring to docks. My understanding is that each lot on the bay will have the right to do a small dock. I know there's a permitting process for that. I'm simply stating that we are not going to go obtain dock permits for every bayfront lot. I want exactly one dock permit, and that is for the community dock only. A community dock, I'm not even positive that it will have a boat slip as much as, I'd like to see it. Basically, my goals are that it's a spot to walk out, have a view corridor, you could pull your boat up, drop off your kids, your cooler, go back around to 393, use the public boat launch there. So kind of a pick-up, drop-off zone. I got 4 kids, we travel like an army, so something like that would be a big amenity to me where I can handle the boat at the public ramp and pick the kids and my wife up on the dock. It won't be there for overnight, that kind of thing. We have toyed with the idea of the HOA having its own pontoon boat that would be available to the residents of the community only. That wouldn't be a public use, you'd have to be a resident. I don't know if we would do it. I'd want to reserve that right, but it's just an idea we've had. Won't have storage facilities or anything for it, so I'm not sure how practical it is. And then they mentioned the depth of the bayou. I've taken a pontoon boat back there, and it is navigable at times. You got to make sure you stay in the lane. Wesley before had to jump out the boat and push us out one time. So, and we're cognizant of the water levels and what's going to be practical and what's not. One of the 2 other things. The mosquito ditches, we have been in talks with Mosquito Authority for a long time. Before we ever filed this, we started those conversations. I actually reviewed one of their PowerPoint presentations they put out a couple of years ago that said, these are 1960s technology, and the goal is to integrate mosquito protection into modern storm systems. So we view that as we're going to make an improvement, not anything harmful. And I would assume that they're not going to allow us to do anything that's viewed as harmful to the environment and frankly isn't an upgrade. So that'll be our goal with it, is to make sure it is an upgraded system. Impervious surface and storm, the clustering and the cluster development is what is allowing us to only have 18.7% of the entire site be impervious. And on a 105-acre site with over 200 units, I don't know how somebody could do it with less impervious surface than what we're doing. I think we've done a very good job of tightening that down. I think the last thing I'll say is on lot size, along the bay or the bayou. We did size those lots to be similar to Churchill Oaks. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, Churchill Oaks, that's right. They are not 1 acre lots. I don't do any 1 acre lot development. I don't do estate lot development. It's not what we do. They are sized to be compatible with Churchill Oaks at being over 1/4 acre to about 3/4 of an acre on the largest one, maybe 1/2 an acre. We have 3 to 4 different single-family detached products that'll go in here, 3 different townhome products that'll go in here, maybe 4 different ones. And the predominant feature of those are all rear entry homes, which is our goal. I heard it mentioned that one of the code compliances is that the garages should be at the rear of the lots. We do that as a standard, as a company. That's our first go-to on everything, wherever possible, with the exception of some of our active adult based product that works better from entry. But we typically want a rear entry product again for the streetscape that it creates. Yeah, I think I covered it. So thank you, guys. And if you have questions, I'll be right here.
Any additional questions? Thank you for comments, and thanks to the public for their many questions and comments about this large development going into their neighborhood. We have a number of comments in the report here. Jamie, how long do you think it would take you to respond to these and then resubmit them?
So we've actually already started that process, Mac. I would expect that we have it back in about 2 weeks.
That'll give us about a week to review that. We could be on that schedule. So we're looking at first meeting in March.
We don't have any objection to that.
March 2nd.
What date is that?
March 2nd.
March 2nd. I'm going to assume our project managers recommend continuance to that date.
Yes.
In concurrence of the applicant, will entertain that motion and dies.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to continue this item to March 2nd, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. in this location, to provide the applicant an opportunity to resubmit in response to the comments in the staff report and the many questions that have been voiced today. And again, we're still at the beginning of this review step, and we look forward to the resubmit.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Hearing none, this item is continued to March 2nd, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Thank you, gentlemen. This will move us to agenda number 5,
This is Worktown Origins Long Lake Park Phase 1 plat. This is a request to approve by final plat. This plat application consists of previously approved DO minor 21-00001 and submitted by Interline Engineering Corporation on behalf of the St. Joe Company. They're requesting to plat 115 single-family lots on 25.31 acres. The project site has a future land use and zoning of Bay Walton Sector Plan Village Center. The property is located in District 5. It's approximately 11.2 miles from the intersection US Highway 98 and US Highway 331, the North Florida Sound Parkway. and would be on the north side of US Highway 98. It's also identified by the parcel IDs in your packet. I'd like to give the staff report to the record, please.
So there, thank you.
Staff doesn't have any outstanding comments on this. The planning is not marked on the staff report. However, after review of this project, the only thing that I see is that the Mylar needs to make sure they do the name change for this project. They recently notified us just in time to get this ad changed, that we're going to change this project from DSAP 1 Phase 1A to the Watertown Ordinance Lovely Park Phase 1. I don't have any other outstanding comments for the committee. Now I'll turn it over to the applicant for the police board.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll hear from the applicant.
Good morning, Brian Price with Interlight Engineering. This plat was made consistent with the minor development order, and it appears that we don't really have any comments to fulfill. But I'll answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Doesn't look like we have any. We appreciate the attention to the details, make sure everything is comes in, it's ready to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Provided we don't have any questions. Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Recommended motion would be moved forward to the first available Board of County Commissioners once all fees have been received and the Mylar has been signed.
Thank you, Renee. We have a recommended motion. We have a motion advised.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Thank y'all. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is approved to move forward to the Board of County Commissioners as stated in the motion. Thank you, Renee. We will move to the next item on our agenda, which is final item this morning, the retreat of the day PUD. This is a major development reviewed by Tim Brown. Tim, if you can briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, good morning. This is a major development order application submitted by Nautilus Civil Engineers on behalf of Shu Charette and Leo Hung, requesting approval of a conceptual PUD and Phase 1 technical review of 127 townhomes, 17,600 square feet of commercial space in 4 phases on 17.82 acres with the future land use of mixed use and residential and a zoning of small neighborhood and neighborhood infill. Property is located in District 5 on the north side of Chat Hollow Road. They are proposing to utilize 10 units per acre in small neighborhood. So in order to do that, they have to do a PUD and they have to have some design features. In addition, they're also requesting as part of their PUD 3 deviations from the code. So we have outstanding comments from planning, public works, engineering, floodplain management, and environmental. And with that, I would like to enter the staff report into the record.
So entered. Thank you.
There's also an outstanding comment from GIS as well about the railroad. So with that, I'll.
There's some more outstanding comments.
Okay.
Nick, I had opportunity to look at this project, and I'd like to enter some more outstanding comments that I think will be entered into the staff report as we move forward on this one. So I want to go ahead and make sure we get those in the record today. So the small neighborhood and especially zoning district allows some additional density based on the applicant doing some innovative or unique urban design, and not just having a PUD, but having urban design code or urban design form-based code written into the PUD document. So it's not just a function of you must do a PUD. It's a function of you do a PUD and then you describe what you've done within your document. So we want to make sure that we get that in the PUD, and some of the things that I think we'll suggest, especially if we're trying to achieve any kind of additional density here, is looking at things like mixture of housing types, mixture of lot sizes, perimeter treatment, the street connection through the development. Is that a public place? Where is the pedestrian shed? Can we see a street schematic to see how that will accomplish the requirement of small neighborhood that the street be meeting certain public and pedestrian criteria? That's actually a requirement enumerated in the code. Another suggestion is looking at building blocks of townhomes, the maximum unit configuration. Is that similar to the lot sizes in the area? Doesn't appear to be, to me, at all. Other things they could address, maybe staggering or articulation of the wall planes, projections and recesses, more of a harmonious relationship through scale, massing, and height, and siding of buildings to achieve the compatibility requirements in neighborhood infill. And I'm just gonna go ahead and suggest that the applicant may wanna consider an urban design professional, architect, landscape architect, or somebody that's a classically trained planner on this project so that we can achieve the requirements of the code.
Thank you, Kristen. Can you hear from the applicant? Then we'll see if we have any, anyone that wants to make a public, comment or ask a public question related to compliance.
Curtis Smith with Nautilus Civil Engineers, SMITH. So we've gotten the comments that were provided. I want to just kind of address those first, more so than the PUD aspects. I spoke with Haley earlier about the deviation on the flood zone fill, and I think we actually have a solution for that, and we're actually going to remove that deviation request and just go about it with the long RAF process. Since it's very minor. What happened on this one is this project was actually in design during the 2020 FEMA map update, and this was probably the most drastic change of any parcel I've seen in terms of the maps. So whereas we were completely outside before, it clipped the corner of about 3 or 4 of the buildings on the map update. So we're gonna have to address that. We'll do that with the long RAF process, just for those very small areas where they're clipping. Floodplain compensation, all that, of course, we've already taken care of on phase 1. Now, some of the comments that we had, and I've spoken with Haley about this and mentioned to Tim, I think also, we had several technical comments for phases 2 through 4. So I think we'll just respond back that the intent was not really to go full out on technical on that one, like floodplain compensation, several of the commercial aspects in phase 4. Put some comments on those. You know, the intent is just not to go there yet. This is really more about intensity, and scale of the neighborhood. One comment we had from Public Works was that they would prefer not to have the third access, which is, there are 2 existing access points, which is Huck and Tom's Road and Osprey Lane. We're actually just proposing to repave those and bring them up to current standard. And we were adding the 1 access point at the commercial for a third, and that was really just to prevent so much commercial traffic from coming into the public street or the residential streets. I do fully understand the concerns of the traffic on Chad Holly. I know that's going to be an item for discussion, I'm sure, today. So we've agreed that we can go ahead and take that access off at this time. We could also just take the commercial component, the concept plan out, because once again, this is purely concept. And I know a lot of PDs just show out parcels for some of those commercial components, especially when they're later phases. But we went ahead and showed our concept layout on that. So I'm open to suggestion on that. If you think about it, just take that off, we can do that for now. And just simply write the restrictions on height, intensity, and that sort of thing, in PUD. I believe that was it on the technical. Oh, the right-of-way protection zone, we've looked at that. We've seen, actually, right-of-way protection zone was done a couple of different ways along some of these chat alley projects. But we agreed that 65 foot is what, is in the current code. So we have some flexibility in the spacing of some of those buildings to shift all those back out. We're gonna have to shift them north about 5 feet to get out of that right-of-way protection zone. So we'll handle that, and I think that really addresses everything technical. There was one comment about discharging the mosquito control ditch. We did this on a 25-year. This particular phase one actually doesn't discharge to the mosquito control. It discharges into the wetlands that are south of mosquito control. However, as we were waiting on the last project, I sat back there on the design software and actually tweaked the outlet structure a little bit so that I can actually make it work with 100-year if you feel like we should just do that no matter what. That's not a problem there. And I believe that was it for technical. In terms of the PUD, I've spoken several times with a couple of planning staff members about how we should go about the PUD documents on this one, and I've looked at some of the other examples, Magpie residences, and can't remember the other ones. There's one other recent one. We looked at those PUD documents to kind of get an idea of what we wanted to go with on this one comparatively. And I thought we did a pretty good job with doing something similar to what they did, but from Kristen's comments, it sounds like we should probably go take a little bit further on this one and do some more form-based code schematics and kind of outline some more details on that. So we're happy to do that. We pulled in Melissa Ward recently, who's also going to help us out from Dunlap and Shipman on some of these PUD items. And if we need to reach out to another urban design professional, we'll talk about doing that as well.
That's a good idea, this one.
I think I'll just leave it there. We're integrating into a community that exists today, the Huck and Tom community that's on the north of this project. And we held a community meeting and got some feedback from them. The community meeting actually went fairly well. It was positive for the most part. There's a lot of questions on how we will maintain their access, how their access will be affected in the future, the public utilities that serve them. What we found out during this process was Huck and Tom's really doesn't have any kind of easement on it. It's just kind of existed there for a while. This parcel appeared to have originally been planned to be incorporated in the whole Huck and Tom's development. And those 10 parcels on the north side got developed, and then it just kind of fell apart. So the roadway just sat there in limbo with no easements or anything. So we're gonna formalize that, is the plan on this, we're gonna reconfigure the road slightly on the north side of the existing mosquito control ditch. We're leaving it where it is on the south side. And then we're gonna split into the two-sided system. And then the plan also proposes, because the configuration of those lots is so strange up in the front, it kind of fingers out to all those on the north side. We're proposing to give them an access and utility easement all along the north between the two connector roadways, and essentially just say your community can do what you need to here, and we're going to actually provide some of those improvements, like the relocating mailbox kiosk, building a gravel road to replace the gravel they currently got that connects them. And we also had some feedback that it might be a good idea to give them an option to connect to the new sewer system rather than having their own package pump stations they have now. So we actually designed that. The sewer system, although it's not for technical review, it is fully designed with water and sewer to the back currently. And we've given them a gravity sewer connection in the back. We spoke to Regional about that as well. Regional has no records of any of the water and sewer in this old development, so we've got to go out with them and pothole and find those mains that are there and relocate them. The phase lines were very specifically laid out to allow us to build phase 2 while the access road and everything is kind of still maintained for Huck and Tom. Once the eastern half of phase 2 is complete, the water and sewer is installed, certified, tested, installed, and the roadway is completely paved that goes through phase 1, then the Huck and Tom development can start using the new roadway and the new utility systems, and then we take the old systems offline and reconstruct those in phase 3. I think that's probably about it. I know it's kind of complex with some of those moving parts, so I'm going to take a lot of notes and questions and comments, and we'll see how we can address them. One more note, Osprey Lane, I wanted to note too, this has a current active development order. They actually started clearing and pulled out their old septic systems and installed one storm line on that, and then we kind of stopped and halted it to incorporate it into the PUD rather than doing a single family plan. That old single family plan were very small lots, and they're having a hard time finding anyone that actually wants to build on those small lots. They'll have to go 3 or 4 stories to make it make sense because they're such narrow lots. So that's still active and ongoing and could still be a project moves forward if we feel like the PUD doesn't move forward, but we're hopeful that incorporating that into this PUD and making one well thought out connected community would be in the best interest of the project. So with that, I'll just, we'll get public comments and questions and see if we can answer any of those.
Thank you, Curtis. Looks like we need to take about a 5-minute break. Everyone will bear with us on that. We'll come back at 20 after 11.
It's called Prince's.
I think we are at the point of inviting any public questions or comments related to technical compliance. Anyone in our audience wishing to ask a question or make a technical comment related to this particular application?
You go, I'll go after you.
Good morning. Still barely morning, I guess. Thank y'all for everything y'all do after sitting for 3 hours of it. I know it's a privilege and a chore all at the same time. My name's Chuck Bell. I live at 266 Huck and Tom's. Actually, that's a second home for me. Many of my neighbors, it's a second home. I guess one thing I wanted to ask about just real quick was, I understood at one point there was a Zoom meeting capability, and many of my neighbors would like to take advantage of that, if that's possible. They're Colorado, Alabama, just.
We are working to get our policy related to Zoom participation back in place for this particular meeting. As I've stated before, I certainly support that capability to provide the opportunity for folks that physically can't be here to at least participate in some manner.
Okay, thank you, sir. As an example, the lot on the furthest west side of Huck and Tom that has that little narrow access to that pier, they live in Colorado. They're very active and interested. They would very much like to be here, but they can't make all the meetings. So,
Do you know if they're, well, while we had the live stream up, if they're able to participate with that, at least to watch it?
okay, so it's live streaming now. I didn't understand it recorded.
It was earlier, but we've had some technical difficulties.
Oh,
So we are
I didn't realize it was live.
We are recording the portion that wasn't live streamed, and that will get posted to our website.
It's just not interactive right now.
It's not interactive right now. It's one way, and actually, our one way is off at the moment.
Okay. And I'll pass on to them that they can view the meeting on y'all's
Yes,
website.
they can dial into the meeting and see the video of today's proceeding.
Okay, very good. I was hoping that everybody else would go before me so I could say, yeah, what they said, but it sounds like the project has a long way to go yet, so I'm not gonna throw out a bunch of stuff. It sounds like there's plenty of things to be worked on still.
And this is the first step in the review process
Right.
For development of this nature. It's very common for us to have a whole bunch of questions and them to come back with a whole bunch of answers.
Okay.
So it's perfectly fine to pose whatever question you might want to.
Okay, well, this is a learning process for me as well, so thank you. Speaking of learning process, I need to see where they define compatibility and what you have to do to be compatible, because just a lot of what I see, it's hard for my common sense approach at looking at compatibility to feel like this development has anything compatible to the surrounding area. So anybody that has advice about where to go find that would be helpful. Really the thing that comes to mind at this point, I drive by it pretty often, is Miller's Landing. As you see where we're at, we're gonna have to drive through, 127 units to get to our properties. Some areas are fairly clear, but there's one or two units in our little area there that they have fairly frequent visits from the emergency response folks for whatever reason. If that ends up looking like Miller's Crossing, and I'm not stepping on anybody's toes about Miller's Crossing, but I'm surprised the fire department doesn't have issues getting into Miller's Crossing, and I can see significant issues getting into all the way in into the far west of this development, especially during the construction phase. I'm not sure I understand just yet, but it sounds like we'd have to come in and around, and actually the first, Huck and Tom will stay open for a while. The road is what I understood, but after that, they'll shut that down. We'll have to come in the other way, which would be even further to get into there. But concerns about density, compatibility, I'm not gonna get into my feelings about it. Supposed to be my retirement home someday, so we'll just leave it at that. And,
Do you live there now, or is it a vacation?
it's a second home for me. There's several people in the area that it's a second home for them, but their intentions are to retire back there someday. And so the road is drawn, ends about 40 feet from my back door. So it's, I do have some heartfelt feelings about it. We just won't do it today. Thank you.
Who would like to be next? Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Chris Pelly, and I have the property right there in the middle right there. 260 Huck and Tom's Road. My wife and I recently purchased it. I'm also a real estate agent, and I own a fishing charter business as well. As a real estate agent, I'm in favor of compatible development of Walton County. There's probably more real estate agents than there are listings to sell right now, but I believe it needs to be done the right way and have a benefit to the community, and hold the values of the county with pride, preservation, and conservation. As a fishing captain, I believe this development is way too dense and way too close to the bay. In such an environmental sensitive area. One of the things that makes our bay unique, and our east end of the bay, is the proximity to the Choctawhatchee River. As you know, the river system dumps a lot of fresh water into the bay. And with this many townhomes so close to the bay, it's just gonna force more fresh water into our bay system, lowering the salinity rate and, causing harm to our bay. I remember, years ago people were saying, there was tons of flounder here, there was tons of seagrass, and I haven't seen that in, a long time. Anyways, I also believe the proposed development does not meet the compatibility requirements. I've never seen a development, proposing to move a public county road and force Bayfront property owners to go through a crowded neighborhood of townhomes to get to your Bayfront property. This property that I own, you know, I plan on this being my forever home, and we just started the building process. You know, we're gonna be here forever, we plan on it. Our neighbors next to me on the east side, it's their full-time residents as well. And, you know, we don't, you know, I moved off of 38, you know, to move into a quiet area, a nice neighborhood with nature, you know, everything like that, you know. Anyways, you know, one thing I did notice, you know, about, you know, similar townhomes in the area, including Miller's Crossings, is the parking issues. They have, here's two small cars, if you notice, two small cars in the driveway. It sticks out over the sidewalk. Like, there's not even enough room for that, and, you know, I think they proposed 3 parking spots, but, obviously no one uses
That was
their
developed
garage.
with 2 parking spaces. One of the parking spaces was counted inside the garage. Virtually no one in that development uses garage parking.
Absolutely.
And we've changed our policy since then related to garage parking, and it will probably apply to this also.
Okay, and then here's another picture where, you know, if there was a fire truck or something, you know, there's no way to be able to get through, because everyone just parks in the street. And then if you go all the way down the end where the turnaround, the cul-de-sac is, cars are parked all the way around the street, and I drove through there yesterday in my truck, and I'd make like a 4-point turn back up, you know, I wasn't able to get all the way around. So then, you know, that's a big concern. I mean, to have to drive through basically a small, you know, urban development to get to a bayfront property, I've never seen any kind of development like that. That's pretty, you know, pretty unique. Anyways, you know, we also, myself and then another resident in our neighborhood of Huck and Tom's, they also have boats. You know, we have boat trailers that'd be very hard to, you know, navigate through that in order to get to our property. You know, and I'm not sure, you know, another thing about compatibility, you know, does anyone on the, may know if are there any townhome developments at all, north of Chat Holly, south of the bay, between 331 and 393?
I think we have several.
Okay. Are there any between 331 and J.D. Miller?
There's at least one that's constructed, Miller's Crossing.
Right, I'm saying
There are
north
2
of
other approved.
North of Chat Holly.
2 other approved immediately south of Chat Holly. One to the west of that intersection of J.D. Miller and Chat Holly. Apartments
Right.
south of that. So,
But nothing north of Chat Holly, between Chat Holly and the bay.
yes. There are townhome developments further to the west.
Further to the west, right, where the road, where Chat Holly and the bay, there's a lot more space there. You know, if you look on the map than where we are. I mean, it's only about, what, a half mile from Chat Holly to the bay. You know, it's such a small little area to pack in so many, you know, townhomes.
Can I ask you just a question?
Sure.
You're a real estate professional.
Yes.
You said when you selected the house, you looked at the neighborhood. Did you look at the zoning on this parcel between you and Chat Holly?
Yes, it did.
It allows up to 10 units per acre?
That's the code, yes.
Okay, but you were
Yeah.
familiar with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
And when they purchased the property, they were aware that there was a public road right through the middle of it, right? And now they're proposing to move the public road, or split it into 2 roads or something, or there's 3, now it's 2.
Is that a publicly maintained road, or is that a private road that provides access to?
I believe it's a public road. So I talked to Stephanie,
I'm not sure if we maintain that or not. Are you-
We haven't found any records of maintenance or anything on it. Our title search found no easements, anything like that, so I don't know who paved it originally, we never really were able to find that information.
County's the
There is
blacktop
a
on it.
development order that was approved years ago for Huck and Tom.
probably address that. And my guess is it was probably developed by the original developer and maintained as a private roadway.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but that's something that we will determine as part of this review process.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, like you said, I'm zoned in the, same thing, but, I'm choosing to build a single-family home to remain compatible with the surrounding areas, because there are no townhomes between J.D. Miller and 331 north of Chat Holly, between Chat Holly and the bridge, or Chat Holly and the bay, so.
That is true. We do have quite a number of them that have been approved south of Chad Holly in this neighborhood.
But nothing north, correct?
Nothing north yet.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just gonna say the road, I believe, was originally a private road easement through the property, but the county put the blacktop on it that's on it right now, or 5-6 years ago, HOA president talked to the county, and they put the blacktop that is on Townhomes Road at this point. So it may be a little foggy.
Do you have a green summit or a blue summit? I want to say it's a blue summit.
I think it's green.
But we have Representative Public Works who's looking at our.
Yeah, and I will have to verify this, but it is currently on the county maintained road list, at least 0.23 miles of it, so.
That's where it lands, that's
Lake
where it
up
tees
there.
into the road that goes in front of the house.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
May I approach? Again, Margaret Landry. One would think I enjoy being here, I don't. This is my neighborhood, I pass by this every day. When you were talking about small neighborhoods, Seclusion Bay, just looking at this map, and I'm not showing you guys in the back, this area right here, just right up here in that area is Seclusion Bay. I think you probably know where it is.
Yep.
But that is small neighborhood. And those lots are 0.5 to 1 acre, each of the lots. So they're much larger lots. Generally, from what, I have been seeing, north of Chat Holly they're gonna have larger lots. And you just look at this map, and I think everybody, I don't know if this one is up or if you can get this one up, but I'm just gonna talk about the compatibility. If you look at this map, there's a lot of density there, and it just doesn't seem very compatible. I don't think the roads can handle the traffic. We all know how much flooding there is in Chat Holly. Perhaps Chat Holly is gonna be 4-laned one day, I don't know. But right now, I don't think it has the capacity. Well, it doesn't. Not that I don't think, it doesn't have the capacity. And the compatibility is just not there. And small neighborhood in our area is known to have larger lots. So they can develop this without having a PUD, and they can, have larger lots and still make a good profit and sell them. Any
I
questions?
just have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Why do you think the PUD component of this is not desirable?
I don't-
What's the undesirable part of that?
Well, is it necessary? Do you need the PUD to develop this parcel? Why have a
Does it provide
PUD?
some kind of unified control and the opportunity for additional development standards that the code doesn't provide for? I mean, that's one possible reason to have one. To have an urban code that specifies what kinds of things get developed on the particular lots. That would
Well-
have a benefit that wouldn't accrue to a regular standard subdivision.
Well, perhaps it's, something I just don't know, yes.
We haven't
and-
gotten to all those.
And it's probably something I need to learn more about, but my feeling is, and perhaps I'm wrong about this, that the PUD allows them some wiggle room with regard to setbacks and density bonuses. I think when I was reading the thing, it said because you have a PUD, you get more density, and I may be wrong.
You have to do some extra things that
Right.
you wouldn't have to do in a standard subdivision in order to achieve those additional density bonus points.
Those are two separate issues, if you don't mind, and Margaret,
Right.
we've talked all the time. I just wanna be clear, a PUD does not automatically increase your density. And equally so, the, the PUD doesn't automatically provide you for, lesser setbacks or anything. Those are things that would have to be approved, and that's the process, and I know that's what you're addressing.
Right, the density.
But this is two different land
Surprisingly.
use, this is two different land use categories. In order for them to calculate an overall density and utilize it across the property if they wanted to, they still have to use the PUD because they have to have an overlay district. So that's the purpose of that. It's not, they're not getting a bonus density. They're trying to achieve, well, they're not going for like a bonus density for other things. They're trying to achieve the maximum density allowed in small neighborhood. And we have to address that, as you heard from Kristen's first statement.
Right,
So
right. And-
we're not done.
Okay, well, and that's really all I'm getting at, whether they have a PUD one way or the other, regardless, it's just not as compatible. The lots are smaller than I think most of the lots in the neighborhood. That's my point, PUD or not.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have some comments? Yes, sir.
Well, anyone can see that this is plainly not, doesn't fit into this neighborhood. I live right here, or my wife owns this lot, I own this lot, and a person just built the lot right beside my lot, and they put it on piers. And this hauling in dirt, I would like to know how he's gonna haul in and build 10 feet away from my wife's house and not have his stormwater run into that. I would like to see if he's gonna build a concrete fence, or what is his plan, because I'm definitely not gonna sit there and let him dump his water on me. And, he's already hauled in a lot of fill dirt right up in this area right here, and he put up his little black fences and all that, but, there's deep gullies cut in what he's got now. The fences are down, and the dirt is being washed into a mosquito ditch, which is a big problem in itself. It crosses Chat Holly. I'm sorry, not Chat Holly, Osprey. Right here. And that's a private road, there's 2 sewage pipes there. Any storm comes along, Lim gets up there, jams up the sewage pipe, and then the water runs toward the bay, and again, dumps on me. I just don't see how this could possibly work. It's single-family homes surrounding the whole little 13, 15 acres, whatever he's doing here. It's not compatible with anything around it, so I don't see why it's ever being permitted. And I don't see why all this fill dirt's being hauled into the county. Somebody's gonna end up at the bottom of the barrel. And, it's like playing King of the Mountain, the man that hauls in the most dirt's winner.
Well, to your first point, why are we talking about this? Because it's absolutely their due process right to make applications for whatever
Okay.
they think they want to put there. Now, we are a long way from a development being approved on that
Okay.
parcel. So,
Okay, I
and
wanna-
they absolutely have every right to be here and be participating in this proceeding, just as you do.
Right. I just wanna know how he's gonna keep his stormwater on his land.
This proposal is going to be approved.
Right.
That's the point I want to make.
You told me earlier that they had to contain their stormwater on his land, and I want to see how he's gonna do that. I mean, that's pretty much impossible when you pave the whole thing.
It's
Put
in
roofs
the
on.
plan set now. For phase 1, phase 2 and 3 are not designed yet, but for phase 1, it meets a 100-year storm retention. It's actually holding back and will discharge less than it does today. That's what we do as engineers. We design storm systems to hold the water back.
Where's your water going?
The same place it goes today. It discharges on the north side of the property today, and that's where it will go. The only difference is there'll be a massive retention pond.
Well, why aren't you controlling the fill dirt that you have there now? I mean, if that's the way you're doing it now, I just assume you're gonna make a bigger mess as when you do the rest of it.
I'll address that. I've had some conversations with the developer.
Well, you let the fence wash down and it's still down and the dirt's washing away that you haul it.
Sir, we sent a contractor out yesterday to fix that.
He wasn't there yesterday.
He called me from there.
Well, he wasn't there.
Anyone else wish to make a comment, ask a question on this particular development?
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christy Casillo. I live at 226 Townhomes Road. And I appreciate you guys taking this time. I know a lot has been covered, and I just want to reiterate. I understand there's going to be some building, and I hope that even in the staff comments that it is considered. There's a lot of things that need to be detailed, and obviously are still open-ended. So I appreciate all the time that everybody's taken, especially with the staff, because there's, I guess, 20 or more points that still need clarification in the staff review comments. And that being said, I guess just ultimately how vague the proposal is, that we look at it, make some considerations, and there really isn't this type of community with that many townhomes on the north side of Chad Holly currently, up until at least J.D. Miller. I think we have an opportunity and hopefully a responsibility to preserve that, to be single-family homes like it's continued to be for years and years. Otherwise, on the south side, it's gonna look exactly the same, and as we all have talked about, Chad Holly is a real disaster already with traffic and floodwaters. So if you'll please consider that moving forward, I appreciate it, and thank you.
Anyone else wishing to ask a question? Barbara?
Barbara Morano. South Walton Community Council's looking at PUDs. That's the bottom line. Matt, you mentioned Seaside, Rosemary, Water Sound Origins. They are unique. They are not cookie cutter homes. Even the fences in Seaside are different. What we're seeing now is a cookie cutter townhouse development with everything looking the same. And Kristen is absolutely right. There needs to be more urban type planning, innovative, unique urban design, and I know the developer said they're gonna look into that. There's 7 parcels, so I can understand the neighborhood's concern, that yes, they know it was a small neighborhood, but 7 parcels put together is a big enchilada. And they have property rights too, just like this developer. They're talking about deviations, that's on page 5. And it says future phases of development shall be reviewed as minor developments. I have a problem with that. I think going forward, I think anything with this PUD should be a major development. I think the advantage to saying a minor development, it appears to be more of a fast track, but what are your thoughts on that? It is. So what are your thoughts on that comment? Is that going to be allowed?
Don't know yet.
Okay, all right, well then I'll go on the record that I don't think it's a good thing.
And that particular determination is made by the Board of County Commissioners, not TRC.
Okay, so that will remain in that comment then, with variations, okay. And they had talked about 3, there was some debate on that, so I think there's some research on that, the deviation on number 3. So, I believe the neighbors are correct, there are no townhomes north in that area that they're talking about. I think the compatibility analysis needs to be made. There is concern of a cookie cutter type development coming in, and I don't think that's the quality that Walton County is looking for going forward. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Any more comments from the applicant?
Yeah, so given the nature of the comments and the number of comments that we have to address, obviously we are asking to be continued. We will need to resubmit. I believe in addressing some of these comments that it's necessary to have a more open, formalized community meeting that allows people to come see the drawings and give us their input. So, really this is Curtis's project, and they called me in to sort of, do what I do. And in this instance, I don't believe that 30 days will get us where we need to be, but I'll leave that up to the planning staff and Curtis, because we'll have to not only have a community meeting where we get input, but look at their redesign and work on the PUD documents. So that's where we are. We obviously have a lot to look at on this project.
We want to look at 60 days?
Yes.
State's Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, Steve Hall. I've expressed both to the applicant and to Kristen already, we've established a pretty standardized process with the circuit court on a couple of our latest PUD appeals, that we believe that the conceptual PUD process and the detailed PUD process need to be kept separate. So in this case, I'm suggesting to you that we have request that the applicant separate the conceptual PUD application, which includes all of the negotiation items that they would like to present to the Board of County Commissioners. Let the BOCC handle that in a legislative hearing like it should be, no quasi-judicial. Once the deal is done, if it does get done on the PUD benefits and the conceptual is approved, then I would suggest that this applicant come back with their initial detailed PUD plan for approval based on the conceptual plan that's been approved.
Very well.
I think that's consistent with what the Land Development Code requires and also our position with the courts.
I think we could do that within the same application. I mean, the detailed plan might come back as a separate application, but we certainly do the conceptual as part of it.
I think the critical part is keeping the hearings separate so that one doesn't, so the detail doesn't get incorporated into that discussion, because the detailed is a quasi-judicial hearing, requires all of those standards to be in place, where the conceptual needs to keep by itself so that the board has the legislative ability to decide whether they're happy with any density bonuses or any conditions.
Do we want this to become a conceptual application?
I think as we move forward, this MAJ 2132 will be the conceptual, and we'll work on the PUD documents that need to be submitted to move forward with that conceptual legislative item. And then as he moves forward, designing and getting that prepared, potentially we've got to figure out the road situation, that will become the technical, the technical PUD review, which will need, I'm assuming that means a separate submittal.
I'm in agreement with her. It's also an issue of staff resources, to the extent that the conceptual PUD approval with the bonus densities and what other variances are being considered does or does not get approved. I sure would prefer that staff is putting its time on the conceptual and not spending time doing the detailed PUD review until we know that the conceptual is approved.
That is a good point. Thanks, sir. What, we'll need to continue this to a date certain. Or do we want to do something different? What would you like to do as the applicant?
I think 60 days to do the PUD documents and have a community meeting for the conceptual plan. Understanding that the technical is gonna be a separate application, that he'll just need to resubmit the technical part of that. So that'll bring, so 60 days for this application to come back to TRC, which means, well, anyway, so, and then we can, he'll need to resubmit, so they'll have two applications to follow through the TRC process. Not that they can't run one after the other, because we would want to make sure the PUD gets through the process, or at least mostly through the process as we're doing the project. So is 60 days sufficient, do you think?
Which is?
April 6th. April 6th.
April 6th.
Yeah, so if, just for clarification, all of February, all of March, the first meeting after counting February as current would be April 6th.
April 6th. We will entertain a motion to continue this application to the April 6 TRC meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location.
So I'll make a motion to that effect.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this application is continued to the April 6, 2022 TRC meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Thank everyone very much. And
Motion adjourned.
all in favor, please say aye. Thank you all very much.
Okay.